Dean, and you're watching Dante's
Boxing Nation.
Boxing Nation.
Dante's Boxing Nation, what's going on, guys? Well, it seems like Demetrius Andrade's decision to move up to 168 is already starting to pay off because now he has way more options than he ever had at 160. In fact, he had no options at all at 160 because, of course, he was avoided by Gennady Golovkin, Canelo Alvarez, Jamal Charlo, and even his mandatory Jaime Munguia. But all that is starting to change now because you have another boogeyman at 168 who's the most avoided, which is David Benavidez. And according to Eddie Hearn, Demetrius Andrade, he said he wants the David Benavidez fight if he cannot get the Canelo Alvarez fight that will be mandated. For those of you guys that don't know how the WBO rules work, if you're a WBO champion and you move up in weight, you're supposed to automatically become the mandatory in that new weight class. But first, we were hearing reports that the WBO, they were ordering Demetrius Andrade to fight the #1 contender, Zach Parker, to become Canelo's mandatory. So I'm gonna go ahead and play this clip of what Eddie Hearn said about this situation, but then I have to unpack this all because there's a lot of unpacking to do when it comes to this great potential fight that hopefully can get made, since we know Canelo's not gonna fight either one of these guys, but we also have to talk about Eddie Hearn's inconsistencies. So let me play this clip.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about. What we're saying is if that mandatory is not available against Canelo, the WBO and the WBC will agree to a Benavidez against Andrade fight.
And they told you that?
Yeah. And that's, I mean, look, both guys got to accept. Andrade will accept, we accept now. Do you know what I mean? But Benavidez has got to fight Lemieux. He'll win that fight comfortably. And then let's see if he wants to fight Andrade.
Now, this is really, really good news because of the fact that Demetrius Andrade is moving up to a higher weight class and he's willing to fight David Benavidez. You heard Eddie Hearn say, we already accept the fight. We, meaning Andrade, already accepts the fight. The question is, will David Benavidez accept the fight? And as you guys can see the post that I have on the screen right now, David apparently already wants the fight, at least his team wants it, because his dad, Jose Benavidez Sr., already posted a picture of David Benavidez versus Demetrius Andrade on his Instagram page. The Andrade versus Benavidez fight, it makes all the sense in the world because the winner of this fight, not only will they put an enormous amount of pressure on Canelo to fight the winner, but the winner of this fight becomes pound for pound top 10, one of the best fighters in the world. Now, the real interesting thing about this news is David Benavidez, he will most likely accept the challenge. Demetrius has already accepted the challenge, according to Eddie Hearn. The WBO and the WBC, they all are willing to match them against each other to become Canelo Alvarez's mandatory. The only person so far that hasn't agreed and most likely won't agree to this arrangement is Canelo Alvarez. So the question is, if they do all of this stuff, does this guarantee Canelo Alvarez is going to fight the winner? We often hear fans say, oh, why doesn't Charlo fight Andrade, or they should have to fight against each other to get the Canelo fight. But Canelo has never said this. Canelo has never said, okay, I'll fight Andrade if he beats Benavidez and vice versa. He's never said this before. And one of the reasons he's never said this before, because Yildirim or Billy Joe Saunders or Rocky Fielding and Caleb Smith, they didn't have to beat Charlo, Andrade, or Benavidez to qualify for a Canelo Alvarez fight. All they had to do was look extremely beatable. So once again, when fighters say that they should have to fight against each other, it's actually the contrary. Because if they fight against each other and you have a winner from that fight, that's going to make Canelo Alvarez even more reluctant to take a fight like that, fighting the winner of David Benavidez versus Demetrius Andrade. But it's so ironic because when Canelo was calling out Floyd Mayweather for the longest and fans were accusing Floyd of ducking Canelo, Canelo at the time, he hadn't really fought anyone. He hadn't fought like a young, undefeated type of fighter. So Floyd Mayweather said, in order for us to fight, You're going to have to fight Austin Trout. Fight him so that we can make our fight even bigger. Canelo got past Austin Trout, and Floyd Mayweather, a man of his word, he ended up fighting Canelo Alvarez after that. This is Canelo Alvarez's opportunity to do the same thing when it comes to the winner of Andrade versus Benavidez if they face off soon. So regardless if Canelo Alvarez is going to vacate his belts or not, this fight between Andrade and Benavidez, it needs to happen. Regardless if this fight is Andrade's very next fight, if it's his first fight at 168 or his second fight, and we see this fight or we get this fight towards the end of the year. We already know David, he already has a fight schedule. Demetrius doesn't have a fight schedule right now. Now, going back to what Eddie Hearn said about the WBO, if it's true that the WBO has agreed to David Benavidez and Andrade fighting to become the mandatory, I guess, for both organizations, then clearly that means that Andrade no longer has to fight Zach Parker. They prefer the David Benavidez fight. Now, with that out the way, let's talk about these inconsistencies when it comes to Eddie Hearn. Now, Eddie Hearn, he just recently came out and he said that he is not interested in signing Terrence Crawford. Now, he just said that recently, but actually, he also said this a couple of days after Crawford came off of his biggest win, stopping Shawn Porter. Now, I'm going to do a separate video on this topic and really go into detail of why Eddie Hearn really doesn't want to sign Terrence Crawford, but I'm going to touch on it a little bit right now. The main reason Eddie Hearn said he didn't want to sign Terrence Crawford, at least when he did his interviews, he said because they don't really have any welterweight fighters over there at Dazn. So he said there's really nothing that they can offer him. He said historically, all of the welterweights have mainly been PBC fighters, right? Under Al Heyman's banner. So what doesn't make sense to me, if that is the case, why is Eddie Hearn pushing for Andrade to fight against a PBC fighter? I mean, after all, you just said this is the reason why you didn't want to sign Crawford. Because there are only PBC fighters out there for him. Even when Andrade was at 160 and Canelo was at 160, Eddie Hearn never came out publicly like he just did when it came to a potential fight with Andrade versus PBC fighter David Benavidez. For years, Eddie Hearn, he never came out and said, that's the fight we want. That's what we're talking about. Andrade versus Canelo. Andrade versus Gennady Golovkin. We accept the fight. Will Canelo accept? Will Gennady Golovkin accept?
Andrade will accept, we accept now. Do you know what I mean? But Benavidez has got to fight Lemieux, he'll win that fight comfortably, and then let's see if he wants to fight Andrade.
Even Bob Arum was still talking about trying to make the Crawford versus Errol Spence fight after he knew that Terrence Crawford was most likely going to leave Top Rank. So the question is, if Bob Arum, after all the disrespectful stuff he said about Terrence Crawford, still wanted to make a Spence versus Crawford fight, why would Eddie Hearn be interested in Andrade versus Benavidez, but not the biggest fight in boxing today, which would be Crawford versus Errol Spence? So going back to Andrade, when Andrade was fighting at 160, Eddie Hearn did not have this same energy. He was not publicly pushing for Andrade to fight against the other DAZN fighters, Canelo and Golovkin. But guess what fight Eddie Hearn was pushing the hardest for Demetrius Andrade? It was against a PBC fighter, Jermall Charlo. Eddie Hearn was extremely vocal when he was saying, we've sent him offers, let's make the fight. Matter of fact, let me go ahead and play a clip of what Eddie Hearn said 2 years ago when he was talking about how bad he wanted to make the Charlo versus Andrade fight. And in this interview, it's important to note he never included Gennady Golovkin's name as fights he wanted to see Demetrius Andrade involved in. Check it out.
Well, you have Charlo with the WBC, you have Demetrius with the WBO. I mean, for me, Charlo should be fighting Demetrius Andrade. Like, you've got a guy over there on the PBC, they've got no middleweights. You know, the only way he can unify is to fight Canelo Alvarez, Gennady Golovkin, or Demetrius. So they're all on the zone. We're not even asking you to sign a network contract, promotional contract. Just take the fight to see if you can unify the division. So hopefully he does, because I feel like that's the fight we need to see.
So you heard Eddie Hearn say that's the fight he feels we need to see. Andrade versus a PBC fighter, Jermall Charlo. But at the time he did that interview, he never said that Andrade versus Canelo or Golovkin is a fight that we need to see, when all of them had belts at the time. It wasn't until recently that Eddie Hearn, he finally started to include Golovkin's name. And that was only because Andrade started to point out the fact that they're pushing for the Charlo fight, who's not even a DAZN fighter, instead of pushing for the in-house fights when it comes to the DAZN fighters. For those of you guys who don't know, Eddie Hearn, he promotes Dillian Whyte. Before the Tyson Fury versus Dillian Whyte fight became official, do you guys know that Eddie Hearn, he was pushing for the Tyson Fury versus Usyk fight, and he doesn't promote either one of those fighters? But yet he says he doesn't want to sign Terrence Crawford because they don't have any in-house fights for him. Like I said, I'm gonna go a lot deeper into this topic when I make my separate video about it, but I'm gonna wrap this one up for now. That's all I got for now, guys. I'm on to the next one. Fellas, I've got some great news for you. If you've lost your hair or have a receding hairline, the time has come when you can finally get your hairline back through a process called scalp micropigmentation. So here's how it works. It's a hair tattoo that replicates the look of your hair follicles when you have fully shaved it down. So to get this hookup, make sure you follow and contact my man Scalp Carolinas on Instagram. All right, now check this out, guys. If you're looking to repair eczema scars, burns and bruises, dark spots and blemishes, then this right here is the perfect product for you guys. It's called Elo Deki Face and Body Oil. Athletes and top-ranking boxers, they're also using it after training to reduce swelling, inflammation, and to ease the pain. So get yours today. Go to elodeki.com, like them on Facebook, and follow them on Instagram.